Welcome to the Steroids Podcast with your host, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Boom! Boom! Let's get started here. The Steroids Podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Guide to ROIDS, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Now, for the first time in bodybuilding history, you have someone with no corporate interests and no obligation to please anyone, not walking on eggshells to not offend. Ultimate Guide to ROIDS gives you the information, the whole truth, not a full truth and a half truth, full truth. Ultimate Guide to ROIDS gives you the keys to the Lamborghini, gives you the information, and lets you decide what to do with it. It's a crime this information has been suppressed this long. Now let's get on with the podcast.
All right, guys, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand, back here with your next episode of the Steroids Podcast. Going to be a fun episode today. The questions are great. Everybody's been going to the steroidspodcast.com website and signing up for the VIP email list there, so that we can avoid internet censorship and avoid people deleting me on social media and then having us not be able to communicate, you and I, anymore with the podcast. So everybody's been going to the Steroids Podcast website, www.steroidspodcast.com, to sign up for the VIP email list there. And then we've been beating internet censorship in that way, which has been freaking awesome. You know how these bastards, these technocrats, they're trying to take over the world right now. They're becoming more powerful than the governments of the different nationalities. So you have these multinational corporations and technocrats, people that control technology, people that control the internet, who have amassed such massive power now that they're definitely able to challenge governments, especially with the backing of old money that they have. So we're in the middle of that. You know, that's what's going on right now with the corona virus, the Chinese virus, and everything. Is it's a battle for power. It's a struggle for humanity, guys. Who's gonna win, the good guys or the bad guys? It's up to us. It's up to us. We have to defend our own freedom. All right. I wanted to remind you guys that also I do the coaching. It's $99 a month for the text message bodybuilding coaching, daily text messaging. We do that on WhatsApp. I got a bunch of guys on there. We chat every day. That's the Steroids Podcast, daily text messaging for 1 month that we do over there. And then also I do the 1 hour phone call consultations, $59. Talk with you guys, the listeners of the podcast. Always have a great time chatting with you guys on the phone, getting to know you guys. So that's all doing good. Inquiring about that, hit me up at steroidspodcast@gmail.com. And that's definitely the best place to hit me up about that, inquire about that, see what's up about that, ask about that. The first thing I wanted to discuss today was Tren dosage effects. So the effects of different dosages of Tren and what they'll do for you. So we do know, guys, that people are different. So, you know, we all react within a general spectrum to certain dosages of steroids, okay? But some people are more sensitive to lower dosages, and some people need higher dosages. But we're all within a general spectrum, okay? So a general spectrum for humans. The same way that, you know, one guy can drink, you know, guys without tolerances, right? One guy can drink alcohol or drink coffee, and, you know, one dude may be a little bit sensitive more than another dude. It's not like an outrageous difference, you know, judging, you know, if you've standardized for body size and everything. It's not an outrageous difference. But there can be some, you know, there can be some variance in response genetically who's a little more sensitive than others. So just, you know, but it's not a completely different response, right? It's still within the range of what humans respond to. You know, you can generally say what dosages of many chemicals, substances, medications that humans respond, and there's usually a dosage range. There's always a dosage range where humans respond within this dosage range. And so it's the same thing with male hormones, with steroids, guys. So while there is variance to where, some guys need different dosages to get, similar results, it's not like a difference of like, one guy needs 500 milligrams of testosterone while another guy needs 5,000 milligrams to do the same thing, okay? That's not how it is. It's so like a tenfold greater sensitivity. That's not the way it is. It could be, more like maybe twice as sensitive, being or twice less as sensitive. These are basically the basic ranges. I'm being generous there. Those are the basic ranges for judging by, what are the effects of different dosages and how it can vary between people, okay? So as far as specific dosages of Trenbolone, Tren Acetate, and Trenbolone and Anthate too, Trenbolone hexahydrobenzocarbonate, that's the ester that's named Parabolin. The ester of Tren, it's a very long-acting ester, longer than an Anthate. It's more like a deca ester. So 150 milligrams of Trenbolone per week is the minimum effective dosage. 3 times per week, 50 milligrams, or every other day, 50 milligrams. So that would come out to 175 milligrams per week. That's the minimum effective dosage of Trenbolone. And mostly what that will do is start giving you muscle gain. You'll be more anabolic, your workouts will be better, your muscles will feel more indestructible, the fibers will feel more like steel, you'll be stronger, your strength will start going up, eating more carbs, you'll get hot, a little bit hot when you eat your meals, sweating. As far as and you'll also get a better look. You'll get a better look to your physique. You'll get a cosmetic effect, which is a diuretic effect, where the skin loses water and the muscles inside the muscle gains water. So it has a cumulative effect of making you look more defined because the muscle is bigger and the stuff that prevents the definition, the skin, and it loses water, so it's thinner. So that all that stuff happens at 150 to 175 milligrams per week. But what a lot of guys want from Tren is they want the body recomposition and the fat burning. And most guys are going to be needing to use about 100 milligrams 3 times per week, or 100 milligrams every other day. So around 300 to 350 milligrams per week to get those effects where the fat burning and body recomposition comes in. At the lower dosage, Trenbolone is more of a muscle builder. That's the main effect, is as a muscle builder. But then when the dosage gets jacked up to twice that level, 300 to 350 milligrams per week, that's when it becomes a fat burner for the majority and a muscle builder at the same time. Where, if you eat a bro diet, chicken and rice and vegetable, beef and rice and vegetable, pork and rice and vegetable, potato, egg, an onion. You eat these meals that bodybuilders eat, that you see the bodybuilders eating them. It's the stereotypical bodybuilding meals. If you take 300 milligrams of Tren per week, along with about 600 milligrams of testosterone, that will get you this effect where you start trading trading fat weight for muscle weight. So you can stay the same weight or even gain weight, and you'll be losing fat while gaining muscle and strength at the same time. So I know that a lot of you guys, the reason you're interested in Tren is because that's the effect that you want. So for the majority, there are some guys that can use the lower dosage, 150 to 175 milligrams per week, and get this effect. But for the majority of guys, it's around 300 to 350 where this starts to noticeably kick in. And they're like, wow, as long as I just, eat what I know is a good diet, not a super strict diet, just, what I know is a good diet, what I should be eating as a bodybuilder. As long as I go ahead and do that, and I, train hard, now I'm making like, quick progress and, going on a direct path towards my goal. And then when you go up to around 500, like 525 milligrams per week, so like 150 milligrams 3 times per week or every other day, something like that. So in that 500 milligram per week range, there's definitely more like of the aggression effects and the really alert, like really like more of the stimulant effects of Tren, where you're getting very stimulated by it, almost like you've been drinking like espresso or some kind of a black coffee or something like that. You're getting this kind of effect from Tren basically around the clock. You're really wired up and more aggressive, and might have some like weird sexual fantasies or dreams, dreams that are disturbing dreams, or find yourself turned on by things that are weird, stuff like that. And also the effect in the gym as far as like aggression and like power in the gym really starts to come on very strongly in this, where you almost feel where you can start. I mean, you basically you feel very good in the gym. You feel very good while you're working out, and everything's going the way that you really want that to. About 500 milligrams of Tren with 600 milligrams of testosterone per week. That is so powerful at doing bodybuilding. And then 700 milligrams of Tren per week, with so 100 milligrams every day, taking a 1 milliliter shot every day. This is for competitors, 350 milligrams to 700 milligrams per week. Within that range is pretty standard of taking Trenbolone. That's like general dosages that they use on a consistent basis. And with 700 milligrams per week, your body definitely turns into like a bodybuilding machine. So things, like everything that you eat, and you can eat ice cream, like some ice cream daily. You still eat the bro foods and everything, but you can also eat some, cheat meal every day or cheat foods every day. 600 milligrams or 1,000 milligrams of testosterone with 700 milligrams of Tren per week, so 100 milligrams every day. That's, you're going to be body recompositioning, you're going to be burning fat, and you're going to be building large amounts of strength at the same time, and gaining weight slowly or staying the same weight. Trading fat weight for muscle weight, that will be a very real part of what's happening for you. So those are the Tren dosages. And then, when you're looking at people, with 100 pounds extra muscle on them, and you can see that they're on Tren. Once you've used Tren, you can more see the signs of being on Tren, and the look of it. It has a signature look to the physique that it gives. But some other compounds can mimic that. But these guys that are over 100 pounds of steroid muscle on them, and they're just on another planet. Okay, you're talking about guys now that are generally comfortable using around 700 milligrams to 1,500 milligrams of Trenbolone per week. Those for these kinds of guys, those are dosages. If they're a Tren user, if that's their thing that they do, that they use. Some guys use other stuff. Some guys use other stuff. But it's more milligrams other stuff because only using 700 to 1,500 milligrams of a steroid per week that isn't Tren is not going to get you there. So you got to really use thousands of milligrams of other steroids if you're not using Tren. So those are the dosages that they use, and the general effects of the different dosages. I'm not pinning these kinds of dosages, and saying because there'll be some people who may use lower dosages or even higher dosages or whatever from time to time. A lot of people have a lot to say about Tren, guys, and I'm giving you like the well-rounded, unbiased dirt on the different dosages. So not trying to be really forceful with that or anything. I'm trying to give you a good general feeling of how Tren reacts with human beings in general, and what dosages. All right, so getting on to the questions for today. First question we have is from Jeffrey. Question for the podcast: do women need a PCT when going off of birth control? What about if they're on androgens, like a low replacement dose of test? Yeah, so women, when they go off of birth control, because when women take birth control, they're taking estrogen and progesterone tablets, or shot, or whatever, and those are their natural female hormones. So it shuts off their hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, which is the same as the way that steroids shut off a man's fertility. When you take your sex's hormone, it shuts off the production of that hormone. So when women take estrogen and progesterone, then their body no longer produces estrogen and progesterone, and they become infertile because they also stop producing the signaling hormones, luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, to their ovaries. So, a lot of women do have some issues for several months or a year, or sometimes even several years after using, birth control for a long time, or harsh birth control. And this is the same thing with men. The recovery varies, between, some women get pregnant on birth control, and some guys, get girls pregnant while they're taking steroids on cycle with no HCG, no Nolvadex, no Clomid, just on steroids, But then other people, take, a couple months, or, even sometimes a year or more, to get the fertility back, and sometimes need to use some drugs to help that process get started again. So it's the same thing for men and women. When you go to a fertility clinic, the doctor usually prescribes Clomid. That's usually the first line fertility drug for both genders. So when a woman, if she's infertile after using birth control, usually the doctor will prescribe her Clomid, which forces eggs to go shooting out of the ovary into the fallopian tube. And sometimes it can cause a double release. So the chances of having twins is way increased when the woman is taking Clomid while trying to get pregnant. Other things they use, HCG and HMG, human menopausal gonadal hormone injections. Those are the main fertility drugs that doctors use for men and women. Since we both work, on these same, we all have the same hormones, just in different levels. We all run on the same hormones. So, when women have a hard time becoming fertile after birth control, they do take a PCT. They usually go to a fertility doctor who prescribes them what we steroid users know as PCT. And you're saying something about if they're on androgens, like a low replacement dosage of testosterone. Yeah, this is something that's kind of popular with alternative health doctors. And what they're doing is they're prescribing like 10 milligrams of testosterone per week to women. And some of them take like Test-Prop. They'll prescribe like a test-propionate injection. And others of them use the cream, like the Testim or Androgel cream, like a low dosage form. A lot of times it's, not branded. It's not a brand name. It's made by a compounding pharmacy, especially for, very low dosage for women. And no, when they come off of that, they do not need a PCT. So having high dosages of testosterone in a woman's body does not hurt her fertility, or after they come off of it, it doesn't hurt their fertility for more than like a little while, about a month or so. It's not very suppressive to them, the way that males are more sensitive to suppression from female hormones than females are sensitive to suppression from male hormones. It's a weird peculiarity, but yeah, having female hormones really shuts us down pretty hard. But usually with women, it's just while they're using them, and Some can't, some might use a PCT, but that's usually totally unnecessary. All right, next question is from Tattletale. Love the podcast, always listening to it during my courier job in the car. My question is, what is the optimal cycle length for shorter ester steroids? Would blasting 6 to 8 weeks, then maintaining 3 to 4 weeks and repeating be optimal? Or is a longer cycle where you ramp up your dose over time more optimal? I think that the most optimal is to hit it. It's like a balance between hitting it quick and hitting it hard, and being on for a long enough time for the gains to solidify. So you've got to make progress in the gym while you're on your cycle. You've got to make progress with your lifts and everything in order to make like cycling effective over time. So you've got to be doing more sets, more reps, more time under tension, more weight. Being able to do that on exercises and getting muscle to solidify and not just be just blown up with energy or fuel storage. It takes about 8 to 10 weeks. Steroids should definitely generally be run for 6 weeks would be an absolute minimum to get gains that stick, tissue gains that stick after you discontinue them. But 8 to 10 weeks is a really good length, especially if you're, using short esters, like you were said, fast-acting steroids with orals, and you weren't using long-acting steroids. 8 to 10 weeks is a optimal length for hitting it hard and hitting it quick and building up muscle tissue, not fuel storage. Okay, the next question is anonymous. What is the best music for muscle growth? When should I expect muscle pumps and that lizard brain to kick in? Well, the best music for muscle growth is whatever makes you feel like you're who you want to be. You're who you want to be. You're moving towards your goals. Staying positive, man. Not getting stressed out. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and it gets released, okay, when you're stressed. And it directly competes with steroids. So if you've got massive amounts of stress, massive amounts of cortisol, it will neutralize your steroids to a degree. So stuff that's if you can reduce your stress, if you can listen to music that pumps you up but makes you feel positive, not stuff that is gonna be may pump you up for a short period of time but kind of make you feel rotten overall, which is kind of like burning a fuse or like burning the wick on a candle, because you'll only get benefit from that for a certain amount of time. Like as far as like music, I've experimented with listening to different types of music, like really heavy metal that was like really hateful, or something like that, or like rap that was like very vulgar and about a lot of like evil behaviors. And while it did give a temporary effect where I would get so riled up during my workout, that would then become less potent over time, where after maybe a period of 4 to 5 weeks of doing that, then I would actually it would overall it would be like I would become I'd get a tolerance to it, and I just wouldn't feel the same kind of kick anymore, and I'd actually be feeling more like weaker, like unless I had built up enough stimulation and stuff. So that was kind of a weird effect. Lifting weights with and without music is pretty interesting doing that. I know a lot of you guys have had experiences with this along the lines of what I'm saying, but I do like music when weightlifting. But I nowadays, what I listen to and what I think is most anabolic is music that's more positive, and so it could be for what I listen to these days is mostly 80s rock, late 70s rock, some 90s, some early 2000s. Mostly what I'm listening to is classic rock, but the more like heavy metal side of classic rock, 80s. So that doesn't like bring me down over time, and doesn't get me like so worked up and so riled up like that really extreme intense music did. And I'm able to just enjoy my workout more, and not be too not be getting a tolerance to it or something like that. I'm just more like enjoying the feeling of working out, and listening to good music, getting a good feeling going on, but not relying on it to get me worked up the way like a smelling salts would or something like that. Although I still will use that technique every once in a while. I will maybe turn on a specific, very more aggressive song for a top set or something every once in a while. Every once in a while, we'll still do that. Okay, the next question is from Adam. He asks, Superdrol, what dosages do you use and how to get the best out of it, like eating and training? Okay, yeah. So the minimum effective dosage to like start getting like the characteristic Superdrol effects is about 20 milligrams per day. 20 milligrams per day, and then 30 milligrams per day would be like where the full character or effects kicked in, like really kicked in, where you were seeing very some body recomposition, some effects that really reminded you of Trenbolone, getting sweaty after meals, and a lot of energy, muscle, a lot of strength gains, and muscle fibers becoming a lot more hard. One of the good things about Superdrol in comparison to Trenbolone is that Superdrol doesn't give sexual dysfunction or like weird thoughts the way that Trenbolone does. That's because Superdrol doesn't have any female hormone characteristics like Trenbolone does. Trenbolone hits the male hormone receptors and the female hormone receptors. That's why it makes you weird. So the dosages, and then 50 milligrams per day Superdrol, that, like, I'm not gonna lie, I've used more, but I would say that 50 milligrams per day is like a good it's a good cost to benefit ratio, or like you can take it for a decent amount of time without like having toxicity, like 4 or 5 weeks or so, without having toxicity that makes you need to stop, which may be low energy or very bloodshot eyes, or inability to eat more than one meal a day or something like that. Those would be toxicity side effects that you would eventually feel if you were using high dosages of Superdrol for months on end, or beginning for guys that are more sensitive, like more than a month. But usually 4 or 5 weeks is an optimal cycle length for Superdrol. I've used it for longer, but I wouldn't recommend it. I 4 or 5, 6 weeks, that's good in my opinion. And then it just starts to get you're starting to get unhealthy, so you just won't feel so great after that. You'll start to feel like I'm taking this stuff, but I think I can feel that it's harming me. But I keep getting leaner and bigger and stronger just from taking these tablets. It's a really interesting steroid. On the other hand, Trenbolone can be taken for longer periods of time because it doesn't have those toxic oral effects that oral steroids have. It has its own effects, its own toxicity effects, but that's the advantage of Trenbolone over Superdrol, is that it can be used for longer periods of time, even though they have similar effects when taken. Okay, next question. Anonymous asks, "Hey, bud, I've got to where I listen to the podcast during my workout instead of music. Seems to keep me going." All right, that's another option for you guys. Anyways, what is test 3? It says a combination of 3 testosterones. Is it worth taking? What do you feel is the best over-the-counter anti-estrogen in your experience? Yeah. So like test 300 or test 3. Sometimes there's test 300 that they sell, which is usually just testananthate dosed at 300 milligrams per milliliter. But if you have this stuff that's like a test 3 or test complex or something like that, what they're meaning is a mixture of 3 different esters of testosterone in one vial. So they're probably going to have fast acting and two long acting esters. So 1 fast acting or 2 fast acting with 1 or 2 long acting, slower acting esters mixed into the same oil, all into one vial. So it's like a blend of different esters of the testosterone all mixed together in one vial. So one shot will have different peaks in your blood at different times. Like the propionate in it will peak after 2 hours, and then at about 24 hours the enanthate will peak, or something like that. It's the same principle as Sustanon. It's this kind of combination of testosterones. And then there's another product that you'll see from time to time that is called like a RIP blend or a cut blend, which will usually be a mixture of 50 milligrams Trenbolone, 50 milligrams Masteron, and 50 milligrams testosterone propionate in 1 milliliter, all mixed together in one vial. And that'll be called like a cut mix or something like that. And my opinion on all this stuff with these mixes is I personally like to avoid it. Having all of the spikes from the blood levels at different times like that gives me anxiety and makes me feel weird. It doesn't make me feel good mentally. Having like spikes of hormones on a consistent basis like that after injections, like more than 1 spike or something like that, it's too much. And so I don't like Sustanon because of that, but other guys do. So that's a personal preference thing. Some guys feel great on Sustanon, but I would prefer just using test probe or using testananthate, test cypionate, test undecanoate. If I did want to use more than 1 ester, I'd want to do it myself instead of having it all mixed in one vial. I would want to have different vials of singles, and then I'd want to mix that together in a single syringe. What I would do is I would withdraw from each vial individually with 1 syringe, and then mix it, and then do the injection with a syringe that had a mix of the different esters. Or if I wanted to take test, Tren, Masteron, then I'd have 3 separate vials, 1 for test, 1 for Tren, 1 for Masteron, and then I'd mix that into a single syringe, but not into a single vial. One of the reasons for this is as far as UGLs, potency for one thing, because they can just short you on something in there, and how would you even know on milligrams or something? And it would be harder to detect that. And then the other one is that usually these blends, like testosterone blends or like RIP blends or whatever, give way more inflammation and pain, like post-injection pain, where you're really sore and the injection site is more irritated and inflamed and may even be a little bit itchy. So I really like non-irritating steroids, steroids that my body doesn't have a big reaction to and be like, oh, what are you putting in me? I like ones that my body just wants to like really accept, and they're very natural, and they're not have all of these solvents, different solvents and things, sterilants put in them, because there's all these different esters inside and different products inside the oil, and it's hard to get them to all mix and be like in a solution, so you got to put all this extra crap in there that causes like the person's body where the injection is to freak out. I mean, that's the normal reaction, especially if it's UGL. Using pharmaceutical grade Sustanon, like Originon Sustanon 250 ampules, which those are available. Those are pretty readily available in Asian countries for the most part. Those ones are not going to give you post-injection pain, because those the company that makes it, Originon, they've got a great freaking way of making it. And it's the same thing, like, maybe a UGL sometime, if they've got some guy who is, really good at doing what he's doing, he might be able to make it without a lot of pain, either because he can do it without solvents. But the majority of these products are not like that. The majority of these products that are blends or sustanons and stuff like that, made by non-pharmaceutical companies, are a total bitch to inject, because they cause so much inflammation and post-injection pain. It's really a hassle. All right, and you also asked, what do you feel is best over the counter anti-estrogen in your experience? There was a really good one that was pretty widely available called Arimistane, and that was very similar to Exemestane. It was Arimistane was also a steroid. Exemestane, Arimistane, that's a steroid, but it's a steroid. It's a metabolite, a testosterone metabolite that's very, very attracted to the aromatase enzyme. So when it enters the body, the aromatase enzyme binds to it, and that takes it out of the body. There's a little bit made naturally, Exemestane, Arimistane, in your body. It's not completely foreign to you, but that's why it's not toxic either, like the other AIs are. Like Arimidex and Letrozole have a little bit of toxicity to them, not much, but a little bit. And but on the other hand, Exemestane does not really. But Exemestane is a little bit weaker than Arimidex and Letrozole. I mean, for example, 25 milligram Exemestane tablet is a normal dosage, but for Arimidex, 1 milligram is a normal dosage, and for Letrozole, 2.5 milligrams is a normal dosage. Out of those 3 tablets, what is the strongest one? The 2.5 milligram Letrozole tablet would be the strongest one, but milligram per milligram, Arimidex and Letrozole are pretty comparable. If you took 2.5 milligrams of Arimidex, that would have a pretty similar effect to 2.5 milligrams of Letrozole. So it kind of tell you how strong Letrozole is. But on the other hand, it would probably take 3 Aromacins. So 70, since Aromacin is normally found in a 25 milligram tablet, it would take like 75 milligrams of Aromacin to equal the effect of like 2.5 milligrams of Letrozole. It's just so to tell you like how strong they are in comparison to each other, milligram per milligram. But like 3 tablets of Arimidex or Exemestane, 2.5 tablets of Arimidex, about equal to 1 tablet of Letrozole. All right, so the legal ones though, that Arimistane one, most of the companies that were selling that took it off the market. I think it's still findable if you can find it. So that one's very effective because it's a hormone that doesn't turn off your natural hormones, and it removes estrogen from the body because the estrogen is very attracted to it. So it binds to it, and once it's bound to it, the estrogen conversion molecule that converts testosterone to estrogen, it's called the aromatase enzyme. Once the Arimistane binds to that, well, that enzyme's done. It's not converting any testosterone to estrogen now. So if you can find Arimistane is good. Other than that, pretty much all of the over-the-counter anti-estrogens have been totally banned, the ones that are actually effective. There are some that are on the market that are like extracts from broccoli and stuff like that. Those are not very strong. Like there's one called DIM, DIM, and it's like a broccoli extract. Okay, like it can have a little tiny effect, but it's not like going to be this thing where like if you've got a bunch of estrogen and you need to control that shit, you can take this broccoli extract. That's not how it works. You got to take, serious medications, hormones in order to do that. So if that's your situation, you're not able to get Arimistane, you could always look into a research chemical company, look into doing some research with chemicals, because these research chemical companies, they sell, like they buy powder from China or whatever, and then they mix it up in alcohol or whatever to suspend it, and then sell you a bottle for research purposes. And if you look up stuff on the internet like Exemestane research chemical, you'll find people selling vials of this. And the quality control is very, very hit or miss, but it is people do research with that. They get those things. So the next question is it's from Jason. He asks, "Hey Dan, any way to lower IGF if I'm trying to get prescribed human growth hormone? I was able to get Test, Deca, and Anavar, but my IGF was too high to get growth hormone." Okay, so talking about things that reduce your growth hormone levels, not getting sleep reduces your growth hormone and IGF. Growth hormone and IGF go hand in hand. The more growth hormone you have, the more IGF you have. Because growth hormone stimulates IGF release from the liver. So it's more hard to measure how much someone's growth hormone is because that's fluctuating more, and IGF-1 is fluctuating less. It's a more reliable number to test to get someone's growth hormone levels. So a lot of times IGF-1 is used as a proxy in order to say like, oh, okay, this person has about this much growth hormone or so. So the reducing the IGF, not getting sleep, and this goes for the same with testosterone because they're very affected by similar things. So the IGF and testosterone both go down if you don't get sleep, if you drink alcohol, like the night before a test, or if you take metformin. So metformin reduces IGF-1 and growth hormone release, natural release, by 50%. It also reduces testosterone or estrogen production by a female, or testosterone production in a man by 50%. So it definitely reduces those levels. If you were looking for a supplement or something, like if somebody didn't want to have high IGF-1 levels, and IGF-1 is involved with like the growth and proliferation of tissue. If a person has cancer, for example, having high IGF-1 levels will encourage that cancer to grow because it encourages the growth, differentiation of tissue. That's what it does. IGF-1, growth hormone. So, metformin makes people live longer when they go on it. And one of the reasons for this is that it reduces the amount of carbohydrates that are absorbed and reduces the total calories. People who eat less calories also tend to live longer than those who eat more calories. And then the other thing that it does is it reduces the IGF-1. So it reduces a lot of all-cause mortality of things happening. People with high IGF-1 have more strange things happening inside than people that do not. But it's not really something to worry about too much, though, for growth hormone users. Like, for example, dosages-wise, for growth hormone, children that get prescribed it for, like, dwarfism or, like, stunted growth, they get prescribed 5 to 10 IUs per day. And that's pretty much in line with what the average, like, 14 to 17-year-old is producing, about the same amount as would be 5 to 10 IUs per day. And then, for AIDS patients, for increasing protein retention and protein synthesis, so muscle wasting, to prevent that, for AIDS patients, they actually they get prescribed 18 IUs per day. So they get boxes each week, box of Serostim with 7 18 IU vials in it. But that's very uncomfortable to be on that much growth hormone. It will be very uncomfortable, hard, kind of painful to walk because there's a lot more lactic acid and a lot more water retention, and also tiredness. So a lot of those people that have AIDS and are prescribed those high dosages of growth hormone do not follow their prescription and only take it sometimes, and usually at reduced dosages, because the compliance isn't very high because of the uncomfortability of taking that. But those are the kind of the different ranges of growth hormone that are used, prescribed by doctors. And then for somebody that is looking for growth hormone replacement therapy, just like replacing their natural levels, as in, like looking for some like skin rejuvenation and, some reduction in body fat, a little bit. And it can have some light libido effects too, and like also just make your metabolism more like when you were a little bit younger, more able to handle some of the junk food without gaining fat. And that's about 2 IUs per day gives that effect. And then at 4 IUs, 5 IUs, 6 IUs, so between 4 to 6 IUs per day, that's where it starts giving like that serious performance enhancing effect, where it's really melting your fat. Similar to the way when a teenager hits puberty, and you just see them having a body recomposition, and they've got high testosterone and they've got high growth hormone, and growth hormone is better at burning fat than testosterone is, but it needs to be activated by testosterone. Okay, so you can't take growth hormone without steroids and expect it to give you any kind of good results as far as like fat burning and muscle performance. Okay, it must be combined. The prerequisite to using growth hormone is that steroids must be used simultaneously, but steroids can be used without growth hormone and they're fine. But growth hormone does not react in the same way. All right, next question is from Steve. Hey Dan, new listener to the podcast, and it's fantastic. I'm an intermediate steroid user in the past. Just started back after a year off from a tear in my MCL in my knee and having my second child. I started back on Stronglifts 5x5, then will switch to push-pull legs once my base is reestablished. How soon is it all right to start a 250 milligram per week protocol of test after starting back? Thanks. Okay, so first off, this guy's got a family and young kids, so he's looking to have a real fit body, but this guy is not looking to, be doing extreme things. So he's asking about 250 milligrams of test per week. I think it's really good that you're doing the Stronglifts 5x5. That's a really good workout, guys. Madcow 5x5 or Stronglift 5x5. Those will really get you stronger on the compound lifts, and that's one of the things that all strong bodybuilders need, or all big bodybuilders need to have the ability to have, a lot of strength. So if you are finding through your cycles that they're not improving your maxes on your lifts, like your 5 rep maxes or your 10 rep maxes on your compound lifts, like squat, deadlift, standing overhead press, bench press, bent over row, then if you do these programs like Stronglifts 5x5 or Madcow 5x5, it will really move you. It will really get those compound lifts up, okay? Like within a 10-week cycle of doing that, you'll be, for sure, even if you're natural, but even more on steroids, you'll be, lifting on those compound lifts for 5 rep max, 10 rep max. You'll be able to lift, put 30 more pounds on the bar, 40 more pounds on the bar, 50 more pounds on the bar. So in your quest to get big and strong, that one of the things that you need to do is to get those compound lifts up high, because we all know that the big guys are very strong if they try. So yeah, that's one of the ways to help with that. So good job picking that workout. You were saying how soon is it all right to start back into 250 a week protocol and test? I would say, like, once you were in the swing of things and you felt like you had got your strength going and you're just feeling good in general, and then, you know, things were starting to slow down again, you could see that the progress was kind of just stalling out, and then you just go ahead and get back on the test, and yeah, things get good. Things should start going a little bit better from there and having better progress. It's not going to be out of this world or anything, but I don't think that's what Steve's looking for. He's just looking to, you know, have a fit body, high male hormone levels, and have energy and be able to work out and be, you know, stronger than the average guy. So that's what I'm assuming. So I would say, you know, once you start seeing things slow down, because you're going back onto a good program. So when you start seeing things slow down, you're like, program's not working so much anymore. Just go on that test. Next question is from G1. He asks, hi, can I know what steroids affect male chest and bicep can enlarge? Yeah. So I don't think English is his first language, which is fine. When I go to other countries, I notice sometimes the people are a little bit shy about not being able to speak English, but I don't feel like they should feel that way at all, because when I'm in their country, I'm, you know, I need to be speaking their language a little bit, you know, like even just it makes things a lot more fun, and they also, I think, interpret that as being a little bit respectful. So I try, and you know, I may feel a little bit shy doing that, but I don't normally feel shy at all doing that. It's more of something that I've gotten used to, and I find it fun. So I like to learn to speak the language, at least somewhat, of other countries that I go to, or you know some words, some things that I say. I can always communicate with them somewhat in their language. I find that to be important and very fun. So thanks, G1, for asking this question. Going out on a limb, even though English isn't your first language. Brave man. So he's asking about what steroids can make your chest and bicep bigger. And if you're any steroids make your chest and bicep bigger. Any steroids that you take, any cycle, and you get a bigger bench press number. You're able to do more weights for more reps on your bench press, and you know, you got to be touching the chest on every rep and doing a pause, 1,000, and then press up. So you bring the bar down slowly to your chest under control, let it sit on your chest, 1,000, and then you push it back up as fast as you can, as hard as you can. That's the way to do the bench press for the chest growth, for the muscle growth, and do that one like that. And then with the biceps, if you can do chin-ups, so do, you know, where you grab the bar above your head and you do the pull-ups, you pull your body up so that your chin comes above the bar, and then you go back down and you do reps like that. Do it with your hands facing your face. So instead of your hands pointing away from you, have the hands, you know, the inside of your hand pointing back at your face while you do the chin-ups. And that will really help build your biceps a lot. And then just barbell curls or dumbbell curls. Just do a lot of reps. And then as far as you're talking about what steroids do that, you just need to be on a cycle that is, you know, reasonably anabolic to get good gains. So something like 250 milligrams of testosterone to 500 milligrams of testosterone per week, with something like 25 or 50 milligrams of anadrol or winstrol or turinabol per day. Pretty easy cycle to use. Not a lot of problems controlling side effects. If you get any estrogen side effects, have some Arimidex on hand, Arimidex tablets to take to control estrogen so you don't get bitch tits, Jawan. Okay, Alex asks, hey brother, I want to ask this for the podcast. What's your opinion of Pete Grymkowski's alleged steroid use? Said he took 10 grams of gear a day, 27 cc's of oil, 3 bottles of orals per day, prepping for a show. Sounds as preposterous as Arnold's 3 Dianabol and 2 shots of Primo. Yeah, some guys take, really take a lot. Actually, the volume of oil that you inject, too, has an effect on the muscle size. So, wherever you inject your steroids tends to get extra big. So that injecting a lot of oil like that, because of scar tissue that grows inside and takes up space inside the muscle, it appears as muscle and it's hard as muscle. So taking a lot of oil like that can be something that gets you big. I think that if he was taking 27 cc's, it was probably mostly gear that was in the milligram of 50 milligrams per milliliter to 100 milligrams per milliliter. So he or maybe a little more, like 200 milligrams per milliliter. But most of the pharmaceutical grade gear, none of it comes dosed higher than that. So that's what he was using back then. There was no UGL. There was only pharmaceutical grade back then. So he was using something like 2.5 grams to 3 grams per day. We are talking about a pro bodybuilder here, guys, who was on the Olympia stage. So, when you're talking about, what do these guys use, and you have some guy that, comes out and says something that's very shocking, but it's very different, and it's very abusive. And, you see some of these guys, guys like Dallas McCarver and stuff that have problems die. And, you look at their toxicology reports and see these massive numbers, like 10 grams of testosterone in his blood per week and, grams of Trenbolone present. And, you see that there's a very dark side to doing these things. Pete Grymkowski says that he had no side effects doing those things. So he also participated in some really high dosage studies at UC San Diego. That were like the effects of taking like more than 10,000 or up to 10,000 milligrams of oxandrolone per week, taking 5,000 milligrams of Dianabol per day, taking 10,000 milligrams of testosterone per week. So there's studies that were done at that university back in the golden era, and one of the subjects in those studies was Pete Grymkowski. So he does seem to be a lot more immune to the side effects of steroids than the average dude. But he was participating in those really high dose studies too that are documented. So pretty, if you can find somebody who's honest about the golden era, such as Dr. Robert Kerr, who was the doctor he was kind of a quack, but not too much. And he was prescribing most of the bodybuilders, that went to Gold's Gym or World Gym. Like he was a good doctor, but he was prescribing, steroids like in an athletic way. So, people would call him a quack because he would prescribe, whole stacks of steroids, and, a lot of them would be to the bodybuilders, and it would be at really high dosages. So, if you want to look at, some of the, wild dosages that were typically being used in the gyms, and he didn't approve of them, it would, be something like, a single. Back then, it was about $5 at CVS for a 100 tablet, 5 milligram, 5 milligram per tablet, 100 tablet bottle of the Anabol. And so when you talk about, and that would be like a common thing to like take, a bottle a day. So for some bodybuilders in that, and Dr. Robert Kerr did not approve of that. Okay. But I'm just saying that, it would be a common thing, and he documents it in one of his books. And so, people use and abuse steroids. Remember, guys, this was the 70s here that we're talking about. We're talking about the hippies. They were also using and abusing lots of other drugs. So it doesn't, somebody, that is a pro bodybuilder and a total freak, that's using these astronomical amounts of gear, glad that we have some people that are willing to talk openly. Next question from Drew. He says, hey man, got a question for the podcast. Would you recommend committing to a lifelong TRT protocol with no doctor? Anything to worry about, AI usage, HCG usage, etc.? I don't know about like committing to a lifelong TRT protocol. I know that they talk about that a lot on the internet, but like most guys can recover for the most part with high dosage HCG use from using steroids, even long term. Sometimes it just takes, astronomical dosages, like between 3 to 10,000 IUs of HCG for 3 to 6 months to really recover. So the lifelong TRT commitment, it's kind of a weird thing that they talk about on the internet a lot, and saying like, oh, you got to be on for life or something like that. But the main thing is that once you start, you're going to want to be on for life, because having high testosterone levels, you realize, damn, this is freaking awesome. And, this can really benefit me. So a lot of guys that haven't had the experience yet of like being on gear, they're asking questions like that. And it's mainly just because they haven't been on it yet. And they still like hold on to this idea of like, okay, well, I'm just going to do one cycle or something. And then like, I'm going to meet my goal and I'll never use steroids again. And then they've been told like the alternative is to use them for the rest of your life. And so they feel like they have to make like one of these decisions like this before they start. But usually just what happens is you'll start out saying, okay, I'm going to do one cycle, and that's all I want to use with steroids. But then once, you've been on cycle for 6 weeks, 8 weeks or something like that, you're like, damn, this is improving like everything about me, everything about, like doing what I want to do, like get what I want to get out of my life, it's really helping. So then you scrap that whole idea and completely throw out the idea that you're going to, not use them anymore. It's usually a question that's asked from guys who haven't used them before. Next question is from Brandon. Hey man, I got questions. I've been pinning Test and Tren for about 2 years now, and almost every time I pin, I will get lumps in my glutes. They are very painful, and I always try to roll out the muscle after. I make sure to clean the injection site pre-injection, and I clean off the tops of my vials with alcohol before withdrawing into the syringe. Is the oil balling up? I heard heat could help, but that it could also ruin the potency of the gear formed before injecting. What can I do to prevent this? It's making me not want to pin. Yeah, it sounds like, you've been doing a lot of injections into your glutes, and at this point, your glutes are just begging you to stop because you're getting the scar tissue in there. I don't think it's oil balling up inside. I think what you're doing is when you inject a needle into your body, into your muscle, you're cutting through, separating tissue, and if you do that repeatedly, consistently over time, and you're putting oils and sterilants and hormone crystals into that area over and over again over time, as well as at the same time working those muscles, scar tissue does develop inside the muscle between the fibers, and if you're doing that consistently, injecting in the same spot, you'll notice that there becomes some firmness or lumpiness inside, and the area gets quite a lot bigger as well. You notice like, wow, this muscle is way bigger because I've been injecting steroids into it, and it has some hardness, some lumpiness, maybe some tightness. And the main thing that you need to do is just find new injection spots and give it a rest. You can't only have like 2 injection spots and then just say that's where I inject my steroids, if you're injecting steroids more than once per week or twice per week, because the injection sites will get so abused that it'll start to really cause you problems. So having 3 injection so the normal ones that are the easiest to do, let me tell you what the normal easiest injection sites are to do. The glute, what and then the ventral glute, which is on your side, which is the shoulder of the leg, and then the hip flexor, which is it's in the same, how your glute, in the rear, it points diagonal outwards. It's the upper outer portion of the glute that you inject. Well, the upper frontal portion of your hip, or the top of your leg, just underneath your hip bone, is where the hip flexor is, and that's also a very convenient injection spot. So each of those spots, you have 3 injection spots on each hip, can take 3 to 5 cc's handily. So that's a total of 6 spots right there. And then people have their shoulders too, which is 1 or 2 milliliters in their shoulders, which is also a fairly easy injection spot. So those are the most recommended. injection spots. If you're looking to learn injection technique, how to find those muscles, spotinjections.com is a really good website for that. With getting rid of the lumps that are already in there, the foam roller is good, but if you use a hard ball, like a croquet ball or a lacrosse ball or a baseball, and put your weight on top of that and stretch the muscle while your weight is on top of it, it'll cause a lot of pain, right, where that scar tissue is, but the pain will start to subside after you've applied the pressure for about 20 seconds to 40 seconds, and that'll be because the adhesions or the scar tissue that's not allowing the muscles fibers to move correctly and properly, it started to break up. So that's how you can do a more intense therapy to it than you can do with the foam roller. I myself roll on top of the hard ball every single day. I've been doing it for years because I'm more susceptible to this kind of thing than the average person. Mostly not from injections so much, but mostly just from training, breaking down and building up tissue and having some scar tissue develop, and adhesions between the muscle fibers, and then getting some pain in the muscles or in my joints because of the muscles being tensed and, not relaxing, and then pulling the joints a little bit out of place and stuff, doing stuff like what I think, what I used to think was tendonitis until I, realized that, I've got these tight muscles with these adhesions between them, because I was wondering, why is my body in chronic pain? So then once I started adopting rolling on top of the ball, and finding those hard, sensitive, tender spots in all my muscles all over the place, my shoulders, my thighs, everything, and then breaking those areas up, putting my weight on top of the ball with it, resting the muscle resting on top of the ball on the floor, and then going through that, getting the pressure right on the right spot with all my body weight on it, and then this pain building up for about 20 to 40 seconds, and then it's almost unbearable. You got to start like laughing or yelling or something because it's such an acute pain. But then after that, it then releases, the muscle yields, and it's immediate relief to the chronic pain that you're having. So that's I really recommend that for helping you feel better from having scar tissue. All right, Jack asks, "Hi Dan, I have a question for your next podcast. I like the podcast and your book, Ultimate Guide to ROIDS, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand, because there's no bullshit. Contrary to the rest of the fitness guru industry, you did talk about a few times, but you never went in depth about your everyday diet while on cycle. Would be nice to get some advice about what to eat for the best results, preferably during a bulk, which I find harder than a cut." Okay, so optimal diets, one thing, your nationality or your race actually does have to do with this. So the foods that you're used to eating, and that typically people in your culture or your race eat, are usually foods that agree with your stomach, and so that's a big one. Okay, as far as me, my optimal diet is a low carb diet, high meat diet, because this gives me the best health, it gives me the best blood markers, and it gives me the least water retention. So when I eat carbohydrates, I get a lot bigger and stronger, and I get a lot of water retention. So for bulking, carbohydrates, there's nothing like carbohydrates for bulking, so provided you have a base amount of protein, 200 to 300 grams per day, for the average 200-pound dude. And then, the more carbs you eat, the bigger and stronger you get, and more freaky you get. But a lot of times with detriments to your health, bad cholesterol, bad blood pressure, bad blood lipids, and especially for guys that are from northern climates. Your race comes from a northern climate, like a lot of white people, for example, will do better on high meat diets that do not have many carbs at all, or a low carb diet, or a ketogenic diet even, mainly relying on meat, fat, and meat for energy, animal products. That will make so much water leave your body. It's just it's unreal. And your blood, I'm talking 10 pounds, and your blood pressure will drop as soon as you get on that diet for like about 5 days or so. Like if you're somebody with high blood pressure, and especially like if your genetic background is you're like a European ancestry, and you have problems with like blood pressure, water retention, being bloated, stuff like that. When you get this goes for everybody, by the way. This goes for Asian people, black people, Mexicans. But I've personally found the most profound results doing this in white people, mostly because the ancestry was mostly hunter-gatherers, and they were not eating a lot of grain. It was mostly big game hunters. And this kind of diet is the diet that provides, for the most part, the least inflammation, the least autoimmune disease, and the least blood pressure, stuff like that. There's a lot of people that say different things, guys. There's a lot of people that say different things. But, the reason I'm saying this right now is because of results that I've personally had myself and in clients. And this is my method. And, everybody's got methods that work for them. My method isn't the only method that works, but this method does work for a lot of the people that I'm talking about. So for me, I've been through lots of diets, and I'm not looking, I've been big and very freaky, outrageously large in the past. Right now, I'm not looking to be, max size, outrageously freaky and strong. I'm looking for a more leaned down, athletic physique. So, but I am still, even though I haven't been able to go to the gym in quite a long time because of this virus, I'm still 215 pounds, 178 centimeters, 5'9", tall, and very more muscular than most any person you're going to see in the gym, unless they're on a ton of steroids. So that's my current my current look, and that's from eating. My diet that I eat consistently over the past few months has been about 2 pounds or 1 to 2 pounds, of ground beef per day. Sometimes I'll have, instead of that, I'll have chicken cooked in coconut oil, like chicken breast cooked in coconut oil, and I eat that with greens. A lot of salad and a lot of onion. A lot of other vegetables, and I'll usually have about 1 serving of fruit per day, and that's about it. Hey, think about your ancestors, man. What were they eating? I hold so much less water retention on this diet, and I feel great. My energy levels. I used to be someone that got very, very sleepy after eating, especially after eating carbohydrates, after doing lunch. I was basically useless. Work was over for the day. But, now I'm not like that, because now that I don't have those insulin spikes happening all the time, I've got low insulin, very sensitive to insulin from eating a low-carb diet. Definitely not as big and strong, but still reasonably big and strong is what I'm trying to say. And, I've got way more energy, and non-bloated face and stuff, so that's great. So for you guys, it's really like, if you're looking to be as big and strong as possible, carbs are going to be your best friend. If you're looking to be like lean and like a very lean down look and non-bloated, defined facial features, stuff like that, a low or no carb diet is going to be superior. Okay, the last question is from Derek. He asks, "Hey Dan, I started 2 IU a day of Ansomone." Good, that's pharmaceutical grade growth hormone from China. So Ansomone is a pharmaceutical grade growth hormone produced in China for use in Chinese hospitals, only in the Chinese mainland. Ansomone, if you find that, it's a real pharmaceutical grade growth hormone, even though it's made in China. So he started 2 IU 4 days ago, and he's been uncontrollably tired throughout the day and was wondering if he needed to change something. He's on 500 testananthe and 500 equipoise per week. Just added the HGH after 10 weeks on that. growth hormone makes you more tired. It makes you need more sleep. It's a very strong recovery molecule, and you recover when you're sleeping and grow, and it makes you more tired. You need another hour or two of sleep per night on growth hormone. The first week or 2 weeks on growth hormone are a little bit difficult as you adjust, because you've got a lot of water retention, especially if it's if you're using higher dosages, but you're only using two IUs per day, but you probably are noticing more water retention, like a puffier face a little bit. The first couple of weeks, your body has to like readjust, so it gains some water when you first start injecting growth hormone. And then, you know, as long as you're taking like under 4 or 5 IUs per day, that kind of goes away after a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Some of that water retention goes away as your body like normalizes to having the higher growth hormone and IGF-1 levels in you, and a lot of the tiredness goes with that too. On a similar adaptation scale, generally on growth hormone, you will need about 1 or 2 more hours of sleep per night to feel the same amount of rested as you did before. But as far as like needing naps and feeling tired throughout the day, usually that's only something that happens at the beginning, or it would be something that, you know, growth hormone makes you very hungry, okay? So when you take growth hormone, you're a lot hungrier and you eat a lot more food, but your metabolism is a lot faster. And, you know, you're processing food the same way that you did when you were a 17-year-old, at about 4 IUs per day, maybe about a 25-year-old for 2 IUs per day. But anyways, the way that you're processing your food is much more the way that you were when you were younger, where it's, you know, getting partition. It's not becoming body fat. It's just not. It's being blocked from having that happen, and you're more hungry and more wanting more food and need high calorie dense food, and so you got all these calories. You got all this. You know, it makes you a little bit more insensitive to insulin too. So then your body has to compensate for that by producing more insulin to, you know, get the same result with a lower insulin sensitivity. Since the receptors are less sensitive, then you gotta, you know, the body's got to produce more insulin to, you know, have the same effect as when they were more sensitive, because growth hormone reduces insulin sensitivity a bit. So you got a lot of insulin in you, you know, from all that eating and the insensitivity. And when you got insulin in you, you're tired and you're sleepy and you don't have energy. So that's the rundown on growth hormone tiredness.
If you would like your questions to be answered on the Steroids podcast, go to steroidspodcast.com and leave a comment with your questions, or email or private message steroidspodcast@gmail.com or steroidspodcast on Instagram. Until next time.